Hi everyone, I'm back with regards to my PVNS and its reoccurrence. I explained in my last video how I found out about being diagnosed with the disease PVNS, or pigmented villonodular synovitis, and I'll get straight into the fact that it did reoccur. After my first open synovectomy, I think that's how you pronounce it, where they cut all the PVNS out and they used my donor bone and artificial bone graft to restructure the top of my femur. About 10 months later, it became apparent that something wasn't right. I had the same nerve pinching pain happening in my joint, and it was starting to be very clear with x-rays and stuff like that the reoccurrence of PVNS had come back. And I guess because of the way the scans were showing such aggressive tumour return, it was now, right, what do we do? How do we stop this? This is quite serious. It's taken 10 months to pretty much re-eat the entire joint. So it was pretty serious. There was showing only about 2 millimeters worth of pelvic bone left now. So the biggest concern, I guess, well, not that I was really thinking of it because I was only 19, was that if it had broken through this pelvic wall, it would then start to be invading the inside of my pelvic wall. And for a woman who would eventually want to have children in her life, if it could have destroyed bone the way it had done, imagine what it could have been doing to the soft tissue. So because there was so much to think about and how we could actually tackle this, obviously cutting it out wasn't really going to be a way of curing it. And again, this was at a time where PVNS wasn't necessarily a very common thing. The positive thinking about curing this was real. So my surgeon gathered 30 to 40 top surgeons from around the area for a stop work meeting one morning, and I was to go there with my parents and display myself and my x-rays and my case. It was his way of trying to figure out what ideas do you have in order to help me cure this or fix this for her. He was also promoting his hip at the time. He had an innovative new hip replacement system, and he was traveling all over the world with promoting of that. And he actually took my case with him. It went to the Mayo Clinic. He really researched quite a number of ways to try and to eradicate this tumour. But out of the local meeting with one of the surgeons, there was an orthopedic surgeon who suggested cryosurgery. And with that suggestion, it seemed like a really viable idea. So cryosurgery involves the freezing of an area in order to eradicate the microscopic tentacles, I guess you could call them, of the tumour that's needing to be eradicated. So the process would involve dislocating my hip in surgery, getting a small frozen crystal, I guess is the best way you could describe it, and putting it into the cup of my pelvic area. Ultimately, I'd be needing a hip replacement, so the head of my femur, which was the most damaged and destroyed, would just be cut off. So in order to make sure that it hadn't gotten through my pelvic wall, which was the biggest concern in getting into all that soft tissue that I was saying before, they put the frozen crystal, it was to a minus 150 degrees, and that means that it would have gotten through my pelvic wall and it would have gotten to about minus 40 degrees on the other side. So if it had gotten through or it hadn't gotten through, it was still able to provide a freezing technique before they started to do my total hip replacement, which could then accidentally spill in any sort of remaining cells of the PVNS. So that's why they did the cryosurgery first, just to make sure that that entire area was then clear of it. So that was generally the process. The operation was then set for 7 weeks. It couldn't have been any longer than that, just due to the fact that this tumour was so close to my pelvic wall, if not had already pushed through. I was told to leave the room that morning. They nutted out a plan, and I waited. And so in my next video, I will go through what it was like to have the cryosurgery and the total hip replacement, and also the outcome of what happened with my PVNS. So I hope this has been helpful to hear someone else's story about how their PVNS reoccurred and how quickly it can happen. So please keep an eye out and listen to your body. Even if you think you've had surgery that has cured it, it is such an aggressive tumour that by listening to your body earlier could actually give you a better chance of fighting it in the future. Good luck to you all.